his decision, saying he wanted to maintain public confidence in state
Hello, everybody.
institutions to be able to
Hope everybody's all right.
period generated by the pandemic. Done by the co-president of USARA Plus, which is part of the ruling coalition.
That's Radio Romania on 9550 and 7375. Radio Romania English 9550 7375 kilohertz.
Described as unacceptable the fact that the Prime Minister did not consult the alliance leadership before sacking the Health Minister. In turn, Deputy Prime Minister Kelemen Hula, the leader of the Democratic Union of Ethnic Hungarians, said his party accepted the Prime Minister's decision and that the coalition must go ahead. From the opposition, Marcel Ciolacu, the leader of the Social Democratic Party, said Vladimir Polescu's dismissal came too late for many Romanians who lost their lives and ruined their health, unquote. Following the Prime Minister's announcement, the leader of the Social Democrat group in the Romanian Parliament, Alfred Simonis, said his party will withdraw the simple motion filed against the Health Minister following the latter's dismissal. 2,076 new COVID-19 infections have been reported in the last 24 hours in Romania, the Group for Strategic Communication announced on Wednesday. Another one.
So here we go. Hello, everybody. Once again, for those that want to try it, Radio Romania International. This is for the East Coast of North America. It's 9550 and 7375. This, I'm actually on 7375. 9550 was a little weak. But pretty good signal here from Radio Romania International at 0 hours UTC. Hello, everybody. Yeah, just had like a million things to do that drove me to be here at the last minute. Hope everybody's all right. And we are here to talk about radio, shortwave radio, have fun with radio, and just enjoy the moment. It's always really cool to have everybody here. And it's always fun to talk about radio, share about radio, shortwave radio in general, but anything radio also. And this is the, place where, as we always say, the radio hobby is often a solitary hobby. So basically, this is the place where we're not alone. We're all together having fun with what we love, and that's cool. Something I don't know. I think about it. When I was starting out, I was pretty, I was in a little bubble. I would have enjoyed having something like this in 1982, where I watched this guy talk about radio and share his knowledge, where I could maybe learn something with other great people that also share their knowledge, and we all participate in here. And when I think about that, is I would have been the silent guy. Would I have been in the chat room maybe eventually, but I would have said hi probably, but that's pretty much what I would have done, being in my little bubble. And, as time goes by, I notice that people write me regularly and let me know, well, I'm listening, but, I'm not in the chat. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to start talking with other people there. So, it's part of how we are, and not everybody is forward. Not like everybody's going to go on the air with a camera and say, hey, I'm going to talk about shortwave to a bunch of people I don't know. It's something that you do or not that I still remember how, stressed out I was the first time I did that little hangout in my kitchen back, what was it, 2013 was the first test. We've come a long way. I mean, in 2013, if you'd have told me, in 2021, you're going to be there, I would have said, well, I don't know. I don't know where all this is going to bring me. I have no idea. And, I'm still here today, 8 years later, with a bigger audience and a lot more people watching my videos. And, There are different types of people, but definitely, even if you're the shy type, even if you're the person that doesn't interact really, I think everybody enjoys the fact that you can just watch, be anonymous, be part of the whatever number of people going to watch, without having to, say a word, and but enjoy the show anyways. And like I said, I would have, I probably would have enjoyed having something like this in 1982. It would have been kind of nice, it was everything was delayed in the 80s and 70s. You had interactions through books, through clubs, mailbag shows. There were some meetings between club members, but you know, every time I went to meetings, so I went to I think it's at least 5 or 6 different radio events that happened here in Montreal or around Montreal over the years. And I'm talking going back. I think the first time ever I went to an event was in somewhere like 89, 90. There was some event happening with radio. What you notice is a club can have hundreds of members, um, even a lot of members locally, but only a small handful of people actually really show up and interact with each other. I think what unites us in radio a little is like maybe not everyone, but a lot of us have this little weird side where we're happy in our bubble, in our little sphere. And radio is fun because it connects us to the world without having to interact necessarily with anybody. But still, we know it's out there. It's something we do alone. And I can bet you a lot of us are actually happy to do it alone in our little, little man cave or whatever place you do your radio. And I'm sure that there's a lot of that unites everybody. Not that we are not capable of, some depends on everybody. Some people are more capable of being a social guys and than others, but still, we don't. We often talk how we get laughed at, and people always say, "Well, you're listening to that noise again." Yeah, but at the same time, I think many times we were happy to just do it alone and be with our little radios and just have fun and go crazy because we just heard that new signal or heard Radio Australia or whatever on the air, and you're like, "Oh, this is so cool." I know I did. I know I was happy to be in my bubble doing this. I was not a sad kid. I had friends. I had a few really good friends. We could, and we would see each other quite often. But with radio and with shortwave, the days when the friends are not there and you're not, you don't have anything to do outside of maybe turning on the radio and listening. I was one of those. I wasn't a happy kid. I was a happy kid. I was a happy kid because, having fun alone with my radios was fine. I didn't need to have my friends all the time there. I remember one of the friends I had, he would be at my place all the time, all the time. And I remember once I actually, it was one of those days where you actually say, well, I'm happy to see you, but I'd like to be alone. And that person was incapable of understanding that it's like, oh, you're rejecting a friend. No, we're not. No, you got it all wrong. I want to keep you as a friend and I want to still see you as a friend. But now, and this moment in my life, I just want to be alone. It's not because I don't like you. It's just, you got to understand that. And not everybody does. Some people don't understand that being alone. I know I need to have my personal space regularly. If I want to, be happy in life, I need to be with myself alone regularly. That is something. And I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of us radio geeks have that same need, that being alone is not painful or a problem. We're actually capable of, like, you know what, I'm alone, I'm going to do my hobbies, I'm going to do the stuff that I like to do. And I mean, I always tell everybody, being bored is something I don't I kind of don't really understand, as because I don't know what being bored is all about. I always have something to do. And being bored is something I have a tough time, thinking that people actually do. When I did my tech duties, I saw so many people. I mean, I met tons of people, which was really nice. This was one of the parts of the great parts of being a tech guy, going in everybody's home. You go in everybody's world, everybody's little life. But one of the things that was interesting is, of course, you see how everybody is in life, and they talk to you. And I mean, the tech guy is not just a tech guy. The tech guy is also, the the guy that they talk to about their personal problems, the guy that they talk to about everything that you would not even imagine that people would talk about. And it was interesting to see that a lot of people that I fixed computers were actually arriving, or were at the first months of retirement, and they had absolutely nothing. They didn't know, like they just had nothing to do. They would tell me, it's like, since I've stopped working, I don't know what to do. I'm bored. And, now I do this with YouTube now and everything. And I have I'm extremely grateful for being able to do what I do, um, you know, having fun with radio and talking about it, and making money out of it in a certain way, thanks to YouTube. It's not just radio, it's computers. It's like, but what is interesting in here is, I'm fortunate to be able to do so. But when I was working 9 to 5 and in a regular job, I couldn't imagine that at retirement, for example, I would be bored, because when I would work, it wasn't fun. I didn't have enough time to do the things I want to do and have fun with radio, for example. I was always thinking, oh, well, this weekend, nothing special to do. It's going to be radio time all weekend. It's going to be so cool. But, it's interesting to see that a lot of people have nothing. They don't know what to do in their lives once they retire. And having hobbies like radio listening, I think, is cool for that. It's something to do. And a few of those people that we talked more, I remember I had a portable receiver once, and my client says, "Oh, what's that?" Because she was seeing that I was, going through my bag to find some stuff, and she saw the radio, and she says, "Oh, you listen to the radio?" And I said, "Well, this is shortwave radio. I listen to the world on this." And I'm not talking about somebody that's poor and doesn't have any money. I'm talking about somebody that could easily get into the hobby because they have the money to do it. And I don't remember what radio I had in my bag, but I remember it was like, maybe, I remember telling that person, it was like, "Oh, this is a $200 radio." And I remember that person saying, "Oh, wow, that's expensive. That's an expensive hobby." And you're like, yeah, well, you got to pay a minimum to be in a hobby. Hobbies are not free. We have to spend a certain amount. Don't necessarily have to spend 200, but back in that time, it wasn't as easy to get receivers that were like really good at a very low price. So, we were still in the early 2000s. Pretty much everything was like, a couple of hundred for a good radio. But you look at that and you're like, yeah, but you're bored to death. Why not? What's $200? And maybe you'll find something interesting suddenly. Especially like I said, when you look at someone that they don't, they have enough money to, they probably have, that person actually would probably have enough money to buy an Icom ICR 8600 at $3,000 without any problems, and but no, $200 for a little portable, that's too much. But hobbies are fun for that, and keeps us having fun doing things, and maybe keeps us out of trouble at the same time, especially when you're young, and even when you're old, we can get into trouble. But radio is a fun thing to do, and it keeps us in even though it's changed over the years, it keeps us in a nice hobby, a nice thing to do. Listen to the voices coming out of a little box from somewhere out there. It's always kind of cool. And so my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and that's the northeast part of North America. This show is twice a week. We are here on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's North America. But it's actually Thursday for a lot of people because it's 0 hours Universal Time Thursday, technically. So Europe and the rest of the world is pretty much in Thursday. And we also are here on Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 20 hours Universal Time. We talk about radio. A lot of it has to do with shortwave radio, but any kind of radio. And radio, AM radio, long wave, shortwave, and so on. There's a chat room that you can join with a lot of great people that are super helpful, super friendly. I mean, I think we can honestly say this is one of, if not the friendliest group of people that exists. And it's fun for that. And of course, if you don't join in the chat, but want to find other ways to communicate with people, we have a Facebook group, official SWL channel, which is also a very nice place with some pretty good people there. And we have a email. If you're not on the the chat room for some reason, you can actually ask for or write us a little something through email. And actually, I'll have a interesting little email to read from somebody called Shortwave Listener, which is actually Tony, and some very interesting little comments that he has here, which is interesting. So he's from the UK, and he usually sleeps at this time, but send an email, and I'm going to read it on the air in a few minutes. So official shortwaveradio@gmail.com. You can say hi. When you do, please let us know where you are from, because it's always fun to know where you are around the world. This is truly an international program in an international audience. Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL in Morgan City, Louisiana. Nice to have you here. Michael Thompson, nice to have you on board from New Jersey. And to NLQ. We have Dennis, nice to have you here. WA9326SWL from Southern Illinois. I like that. The Blind Picker, nice to have you here. Rob, W0RAB in Connecticut. Heather, nice to have you on board. Where are you located, Heather? Let us know. Always nice to have everybody know where everybody's from. Eyebrawler, nice to have you here from Northeast Arkansas. Thomas from Monclova, Ohio. Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you here from Denver, Colorado. No problem with the popping in and out. There are other things to do than watch my show. Also, life goes on, as we say. Mark Cope, WA5153SWL in Dallas, Texas. Rich, nice to have you here from North Carolina. Brett Wayne, nice to have you here from Salamanca, New York. KC2NXP. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you on board from Missouri. WA0113SWL. Tom DXer, nice to have you here from the Hudson Valley, New York, WPE2QED. Rufus Newt, nice to have you here from the Laurentian Valley, Ontario, locked down in beautiful weather. Here we're just supposed to, it was an amazing week. We had, until today, a very, very beautiful week, but now it's going to be rainy tomorrow and for the next few days. Lots of rain, apparently. Mark Parks, nice to have you here. Which radio would you buy, the XH Data or Texan PL330? That's a tough one. Honestly, both are great. So choose what you feel is the best. Both are great. All I'm gonna say. Whatever you get, it's a great radio. One added bonus of the XH Data is the XH Data has the airband. If that's important to you, then you already made a choice because the PL330 does not have airband. Magazine 1976 from Cold West, Michigan. William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. KW1161, nice to have you on board. Trimballi, Mr. Bale, nice to have you on board from Portland, Oregon. Joe Rotman, nice to have you here from Chicago. TVDXer, bonjour, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien toi aussi. Paul Richardson, nice to have you here. VE9 VW in New Brunswick, Canada. Nice to have you on board. I don't know why every time I hear VE9, I always think it's some kind of exotic call, and it's always New Brunswick. But for a reason, I kind of get into that hype of, oh, isn't that one of the calls from the Nunavut or whatever? And it's like, no, VE9, it's from New Brunswick. I always get caught. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the order of things, because, on the East Coast, you have like the VA1, and you're like, well, why is New Brunswick VE9? Probably has to do with, some kind of anyways, it's always fools me, and always like, oh no, V9 is in New Brunswick. Not that it's not important. It's just that I always get caught that it's some exotic Canadian station. Well, it's New Brunswick. It must be exotic anyways. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Aerial Imaging, nice to have you on board. Skip in 2EI. Not bad at all here. Hope you are well too, my friend. VT Radio, nice to have you on board. Paul AA1SU from Essex Junction, Vermont. Roger, nice to have you on board from South Central New Mexico. Nice to have you here, my friend. Kimberly, K6YYL from California. Hello from Montreal. Paul Richardson, nice to have you here. RTM, nice to have you on board from the Napa Valley, California. Tristan, nice to have you on board. James Johnson, nice to have you here from Florida, WA4493SWL. Joe, nice to have you on board from Newmarket. Oops, I lost my space. I have to find it again. It happens every show. Every show. So here we go. And here we go. Where am I? Here we go. So, okay. I think we found our little place here. So, Joe from Newmarket, Virginia. Nice to have you here. We have Joe Tyson. Nice to have you here from North Carolina, KM4 WRQ. Comanche 76 has 9550 in Michigan. Joe Brown, nice to have you here from Southeast Michigan. Keegan, nice to have you here. XN80Xer from Northwest Arkansas. Bernie Dodge, nice to have you here from San Diego. KD1BD. Now, what do we have? Randy, nice to have you on board from Riverside, California. Aerial Imaging says, I agree. As a kid, this would have been super useful. Back in those days, I was completely trial and error with the hobby. No friends who were interested. Magazines, nothing. Yep, same here. It was, I always tell the same story of, when you don't know what you're doing and you have no idea what's happening. One of the things that I did not know, because it was not explained in the manual of the receiver I had, which was a Realistic DX100, was that solar activity played a big role in propagation of signals, which is not something I thought of until I heard something. I don't know when. I probably heard something on some DX show, or read it um, on some maybe bulletin or something. Back in the days, I remember I had all of those. If you remember, if you guys that have been there for a long time, Radio Netherlands had actually a nice series of little booklets that you could actually ask, that had to do with radio, shortwave radio, and one of them was, I believe, on radio propagation and how solar activity affects radio propagation. Probably one of the reasons I knew that I understood that finally, oh, sure, the sun actually has an effect. And I still remember I got I guess I had the Realistic DX302 at that time. I would tune 15575 and hear I would actually hear KBS World Radio at 1400 UT quite well. And I heard South Korea a few times. Back then, they weren't called KBS World Radio. They would call themselves Radio Korea. And because North Korea would call themselves Radio Pyongyang at some point at that time, which made them a very big difference. And I remember one day I turned on my radio, punched in, went to 15575. Was my, here it was 10 a.m. in the morning. It was like, this is my morning fix of South Korea. And nothing there. And I don't understand why there's nothing there. And I started looking at my wires, and I had about 100 feet of wire up on the roof. Bring back the wire down, look at the wire. Is my wire broken? And, you try to think, how can a wire break, actually, especially when it's been up there only for, a couple of months. So I'm like, well, what happened? And, I go and buy new wire, and I actually put a brand new wire out and put the 100 feet again up. And I'm like, what's wrong? I'm not catching the stations I usually do. And the next morning, Radio Korea still isn't good. And I'm like, is my radio broken? What's wrong? And then the third day or fourth day, it's like I tune it because I'm curious, and I'm a little, I'm kind of a little frustrated, because I'm like, well, what's wrong? I don't understand what's wrong. And it's driving me crazy. And Radio Korea is really good suddenly again. And I'm like, what happened? It's fixed. My radio was broken and it fixed itself somehow. Little did I know that all of that was solar activity. Something probably had happened on the sun, and it made poor propagation for a couple of days to Korea, But, it's learning. That's the experience. And then today I look at that, and it's like, yeah, it's funny. I didn't know anything. But then, I had some information and learned about solar activity and all of that, and had a better idea of what's happening and solar cycles. That's something I had no idea the sun had a solar. And I was an astronomy guy, but I was never. I probably had read about the sun having an 11-year cycle, but probably never, I had nothing to associate that 11-year cycle with anything. It's truly when I was listening to Shortwave that I understood the sun had 11-year cycle, because for suddenly it was important. Suddenly there was different propagation depending on the top or the bottom of the cycle and stuff. But that said, because I see this so often lately, and in the past couple of years, and a lot of it I see from ham radio operators that apparently know everything. Um, I see these guys say, "Well, we're at the bottom of the cycle. That's why it's bad." It's funny because in all the years that I've listened to shortwave, I've never complained of the low part of a solar cycle. Never. There is always something to listen to. And I still today think that being in the top or the bottom of the solar cycle is overrated. And what I mean by that is people take too much time looking at that, thinking that, well, everything's bad because solar cycle, we're at the bottom part of the solar cycle. If I had something to say to ham radio operators out there is, no, everything's bad in the bands because no one takes his darn microphone and calls CQ. Why don't you just kick your butt and call CQ? Because I'm sorry, but I've not seen any contests, ham radio contests, that had no activity because we're in the bottom of a cycle. That drives me nuts because it's like, stop talking stupid and call CQ, please. Okay? I'm tired of that. And I often say it. Some of the best DX I've ever made in my life with stations you hear very, difficult to hear stations, often were in low parts of solar cycles. Stop going crazy with solar cycles. Yeah, we're at the bottom of the cycle right now. I'm listening to Radio Romania. It's not, there's nothing. There's something. Yes, it changes, and there are things that come back that are kind of cool when you were getting higher in activity. But stop thinking I'm not hearing anything because the solar cycle we're at the bottom of the cycle. How many times I heard it was like, well, I'm going to turn on the radio 2 years from now when the solar cycle is better. Yeah, right. That shows me that you know nothing about radio. And when I hear that out of the mouth of an amateur operator, I find that even more appalling because I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to know a little more about radio than that, especially because you got a license. But it's part of life. Christian Marcoux, bonsoir de North Bay. J'espère que ça va bien. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Mickey Delnage, nice to have you here from Sherwood Park, Alberta. Yeah, stop, brushing that Radio Thailand in my face. Oh, man. I tried it just as I was getting in. Not even a peep of a signal here on the East Coast on 15590. Darn it. James Farley, nice to have you here from New Jersey. What else do we have? Keegan, 2014 is the year of the first show. So for 2014. Cool. So that's 7 years. Pretty amazing, eh? Rufus Newt says, did club meetings most made me feel like an ass. I went to club meetings and I went to an event. There was an event called the Montreal Radio Festival that were organized by CIDX and Sheldon Harvey. I had a hard time, I was in my little bubble, so I had kind of a hard time really fitting in. I felt like I was not fitting in for some reason. William Kraft, nice to have you here from Maine. James Johnson, monitoring 11 meters and watching the show. Cool. Well, that's a cool day a cool moment to end a day that isn't cool. Theo, nice to have you on board. Hope you are well, my friend. Spike Spikerson, nice to have you on board. The radio opens a new world to explore. Absolutely. Absolutely. Blind Picker says, geez, I thought I was the only one. Well, that's the problem of being like that is we always think we are the only ones, and we're not at all. Aerial imaging says I enjoy the solitude of the hobby, but I'm always happy to talk about it to curious parties. When guests see the desk I have in my office, I always it always elicits questions. Then I'll show them tuning around, and they're usually pretty interested. Cool. Hey, Dr. Sisop, nice to have you here. We'll check the WWV and CHU in a few minutes. Aerial imaging, my wife's friend actually sat and spun the dial on the Drake for about 45 minutes and got quite a kick out of it. So that was a radio guy. We don't find them that often because he really was interested. So yeah, it's interesting to see the amazement when you tell somebody, that, oh well, yeah, well, that signal is from that area. I had an opportunity not long ago. I was tuning around, and somebody came over for a problem in the house. And you look at my radio, so, oh, look at that. So you're, at least he didn't say you're a CB, or he said, oh, you're an amateur operator or something. And I said, well, I know I'm just a listener. But Voice of Greece was playing. He says, oh, where's that music come from? I said, well, you're actually listening to a signal that comes all the way from Greece into my radio here. And he was like, oh, wow, really? That far away? I said, yeah. He said, wow, you got some hell of equipment. We didn't go further in conversation, but it was kind of funny. Mike, WDX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Robert Cross, nice to have you here. Chris66, nice to have you on board from Kentucky. Jazz Tank, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky. Dr. Sisop, so happy no more brothers stare now to mute Radio Havana with a jammer on 6000. So apparently all of the frequencies, by the way, of Brother Stare, what I got this from World of Radio, Glenn Hauser's World of Radio, that has a very interesting rant about Brother Stare in his show. He mentioned that apparently by the end of the month, we're going to know what the status of what's going to happen with Overcomer Ministry broadcast on shortwave. KW11, that KW1161 says, I learned never say I'm bored in the U.S. Navy. That's like never say I've got nothing to do at a workplace. Aerial Imaging says it's surprising how many casual people really don't even know about the existence of this type of radio hobby. And when you show them, they do think it's quite interesting. Oh, yeah. Radio Havana, Cuba does, James Johnson, have some beautiful Cuban music. Absolutely. 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 It's like Radio Nacional Amazon 11780. They often have a lot of nice Brazilian music in the evenings there. Really, really cool. Leonard Lakey, nice to have you here. Can't interest my wife in shortwave listening, but we both are loners. We have a large enough house that we can each do our own thing without getting on each other's nerves. And that's a perfect combination, by the way, because when things get a little tense, everybody goes and does its own little thing to relax. And then they're happy a few hours later. Michael Thompson, if you're bored in radio, there are things that need fresh batteries. RJ Dakota says, I'm surely thinking that Brother Sterry isn't completely gone. He's probably been recorded for broadcast in the future. Yeah, the problem is it's not that. If we know that probably there are tons of, because he already had a lot of reruns of old shows. So, and actually I've been hearing I came across Brother Stare on WRMI. I think it was yesterday, and I was listening to his voice, where he like so much. His voice sounds younger, much younger, and one of the things that is being talked about is there going to be continued funding for all of the shortwave stuff with him gone now. And from what I understand, probably what happens is everything's been paid for. April is probably everything. All the bills are paid and all the money is sent to the stations so that he's on the air. So probably the reason they put like the month of May as a as the time when we'll see if something is continuing is probably because that's when they're going to find out, do we have the money to continue doing this, and should we continue doing this? Hey, Fastload. Yeah, when time comes. When time comes. I'm in no rush, honestly. But when time comes, I will do. Nils Peterson, nice to have you on board. And hope you are all right in Sweden. Long time no see. I see your comments from time to time. And thanks for being there. I always read the comments that you leave on the channel. So you got a new radio, Texan R9700DX. Pretty cool. It is, it's a interesting for an analog radio. It's an interesting device because it is iron and analog. It does have is that what, the double conversion, at least a double conversion receiver. It is really actually a good radio, but in analog form. And I've seen only good things about that Texan R9700DX. Northern Dawn, nice to have you here. A new guy retired and moaned he had nothing to do. Then he moaned at me for spending time DXing and gaming. Yeah, that's something. Sometimes you're like, yeah, and that's always an interesting thing about the hobby and all. It's the fact that when we do something, a lot of people kind of tend not to understand also, oh, well, you spent all those hours playing games. Yeah, so that's, Junior, nice to have you on board, and says, name is Bill, and he's a radioholic. Well, you're at the right place to be even more of a radioholic. So it's going to get worse here. Fastload, having money doesn't mean that the stuff is cheap. It's still expensive for that little thingy. Yeah, but when you have money and you're bored, there are times when, you're like, come on. You got to spend money to do something sometimes. David Xer, you had an ICOM 8500 in your bag that day. Well, the ICOM 8500 came, my radio timeline is the Realistic DX100 in 1982. About a year and a half later, the Realistic or Radio Shack DX302, which was a better radio, but still the DX302 has a major flaw. Today, it probably doesn't show much because it doesn't happen as often that there are some strong stations. But the DX302 is a crappy front end. And when a very, very powerful station was on the same band that you're trying to listen to, it would wash out with kind of a white noise and desensitize the receiver. So the DX302 is actually a so-so radio, nothing more than a so-so radio. It probably is better today, like I said, because of the fact that there's not a lot of very powerful signals to bring it to that threshold of being a bad radio. But back in the 80s, there were so many strong stations that it was often a bad radio. Then I moved on to the Kenwood R5000. That was in 1990-ish, somewhere. Kenwood R5000 was my main desktop receiver so from 1990 to 2010-ish. That's when I purchased the ICOM ICR 8500 because the R5000 was having tons of problems over time. And now I almost don't use nothing because I enjoy much more the SDRs than these desktop radios. It's much more interesting to see the waterfall with all the signals that I've missed. I would have missed if I wouldn't have seen them. And the performance of these is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. You know, the SDR play device is great for shortwave. For shortwave listening, the AirSpy HF Plus is pretty good too. I put them pretty much equal. Like I said, I don't put the AirSpy HF Plus better than the RSPDX. For me, they are the same. They are as good as each other. I don't think I don't see anything that points me towards the AirSpy being better. But if you have one or the other, you got a great SDR. You definitely have a great SDR. Michael Thompson says back in the day installed an IC 8500 in surveillance vans. Oh man, crazy. Mad Reader DXer, nice to have you here from Europe. Nice to have you on board from the UK. David Spears, nice to have you on board. Coffee break at work. Well, cool to have you on board. Hope it's not too rough of a work day. Tom DXer, my orange and white tabby monster just forced his way into my chair as in his watching. I think he's waiting to see Paul. Oh man. What do we have? What else do we have? Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. And he just recently passed his amateur extra license exam. Congratulations, my friend. Brad in Amarillo, nice to have you on board. And 5LUL. Mary, nice to have you on board from Kansas City, Missouri. Yogi, nice to have you on board. VR2005SWL. Nice to have you here, my friend. Jay Watterson 69. Nice to have you here. Arthur's Alley Kitchen. Greetings from Massachusetts. And wondering if Brother Stairs funeral services will be broadcast on shortwave. He should bring that bunch of moaners with him. That'd be nice. A bunch of moaners for like 3 hours on WRMI. Do you guys see the radio ratings of the BBC when they started all of the coverage of Prince Philip death and removed all the regular programming? Their audience dropped like 40%. It was like people are just like, are you kidding me? Hours of that? It's boring. Ralph, nice to have you here from South Jersey. Reload and Charge, nice to have you on board. Stewart, Florida. D808 is DSP. So it has the muting, unfortunately, but it's a DSP receiver. DSP receiver. And let's go down. I'm trying to go down a little faster. Hey, fast load. Yeah, but I don't know why VE9 for me is always exotic. I don't know. For some reason in my head, because Quebec is VE2 and the Atlantic is VE1, I have a hard time focusing on the VE9 being stuck in the middle of the VE1 and VE2. So it's like my brain is like VE9. Oh, wow, that's exotic. No, it's not. It's New Brunswick. Wizard of Oz. Nice to have you on board, Aussie KC9TVN. And so you got the SE4732 SDR. I haven't received mine. I actually claimed for I have my money back. I've not been lucky with the two SDRs that I got. There's like it's been super complicated. So I've asked for my money back. Lloyd Merrill, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Rick Satter, nice to have you here from Milwaukee. DJK Solo, nice to have you here. Glenn Howe, nice to have you here. KE5EGP. Ed, nice to have you here from Long Island, New York. K2EPM. Danny Shortwave and Radio DX, nice to have you on board from Yonkers, New York. Chris, G7VEO, nice to have you here from England. It's because I didn't have time because today I wanted to put it up today because they're supposed to have rain tomorrow, and this morning I thought about it for the tram discount, but I just had too many things to do, and I ended up it was like 5 p.m. and it was like, okay, I haven't finished everything. I got on the air here and just had finished every little single thing I had to do today because it was too complicated and too compressed. And so if there's some time tomorrow where it might not rain, I'm going to try to install it tomorrow. If not, well, it's going to go through the weekend probably. But it is going to be up in the next few days for sure. Mohammed, nice to have you on board, my friend. Leonard Lakey, Wichita, Kansas. Thanks for the heads up on Radio Romania. Got a new computer. Now I can watch your live streams and tune into the world with SDR Uno simultaneously. Cool. Welcome aboard. Travis, nice to have you here. The WN4DX from North Carolina. SoCal, nice to have you here from San Diego. EC Fetters Walp, nice to have you on board from Lake Stevens, Washington. Listening to this as I finish writing things for my day job. Cool. Glenn says 20 meters have been horrible lately. I've had this week we've had a little bit of unsettled conditions, making it a little rougher, but 20 meters has been actually good for me. I suspect much more that the bands, when people tend to say, well, the bands are horrible, is because nobody's just going on the bands to call CQ. Ronald, nice to have you here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Picked up in the box Cato 1103 non-DSP for $59. You're going to be happy. It's a really nice little radio. By the way, somebody on the channel is sending me a emergency radio with shortwave on it. He owned the radio for a couple of months and was not using it, so he put it back he put it in its original box, and he said he asked me for my postal address. So I got the tracking according to Canada Post. It's supposed to arrive Friday. Let's hope that it's going to. I'll have that new little toy to play with. It's one of those all-in-one emergency radios with hand crank solder charger, has NOAA weather channels, has shortwave, AM, FM, and everything. So I'm going to see about that. What else do we have? Yeah, let's not think too much about that. The Next Carrington event. There is actually a there was actually a article on space. I think it was on was it Space Weather or Space.com that I read this week. They were saying that an event like the like in 1989 when there was that big solar storm and the Quebec power grid fell. They thought that those types of solar storms came only once per century. And now they're saying that they are probably twice as often, if not more. So it's like, okay. So they could happen much more than we thought. Keegan, on Sunday the 11th, my local KBVA Bella Vista, Arkansas 106.5 went out the air for about 20 minutes. And he received WDAF in Missouri. Cool. I always like when I hear in advance when a station is actually going to go off the air so we can actually DX on its frequency. It's kind of fun. Mike DX says, I guess my shortwave listening began at the start of solar cycle 21, 22, 1979. Yeah, I was at the declining phase. In 1982, that cycle had passed its peak, but it was still pretty strong. I was at the declining phase of that. But I didn't complain of high or low solar activity. I think that's probably one of the things that is a problem today. People tend to blame the lack of hams in the bands or maybe the lack of signals on solar activity when in reality it's the lack of signals and the lack of people calling CQ that's the problem. And it might be accelerated on the ham bands in a way because I hear so many hams saying, well, we're at the bottom of the cycle, that's why everything's crappy, that I wonder if some are just like, well, it's not worth it to do it right now, we're at the bottom of the cycle. They kind of have that mindset that we're at the bottom of a cycle, it can't be good. And no, it's not true. It's not true. Avid tea drinkers, nice to have you here. Mickey Dalmage, we here have had some amazing reception at the bottom of the part of the cycle. You're so right that many hams bitch about the bottom of the cycle. Long distance AM reception is amazing with an A and K index 0. Yep, absolutely. And even shortwave isn't dead. Shortwave is alive and has signals, and there's a lot of stuff. Just look at how amazed a lot of people. We all came through that when I Saturday night WWCR, which is on 4840. My habit of Saturday night here is at 03 to 04 UT Sunday, technically, which is 11 p.m. here to midnight. WWCR on 4840 has what I call the DX block. It consists of Ask WWCR, then it's the Australian DX report, and then it's the AWR wave scan show. And that's my, Saturday night listening. It's been my solid Saturday night, usually the hour before I listen to VORW, which broadcasts just before. And then I head on to the DX block on WWCR. And for some reason, WWCR was off 4840 Saturday night. And another observation of WWCR, they're always on 6115 also. And last night, around 02-ish UT, 6115 had nothing on it, but 4840 was on. So I'm wondering if one of their transmitters is maybe having problems. So, of course, I don't have that regular listening. What am I going to do? I started looking at Actually, I decided to really take a close look at the 60-meter band from, like 4,700 to 5,200 roughly. And of course, there was the usual Radio Progresso 4765 from Cuba. There was 4885, the Brazilian station. There was a weak Voice of America on 4930 from Botswana, I believe. But 4940 was just good enough to hear Spanish and hear the music. And it was that station, La Montana, Colombia, that was on 4940 with a decent enough signal that it was interesting to listen to. I was like, well, that's some kind of interesting DX, So it's Colombia. It's not a very powerful station. It was coming well enough that it was interesting to keep the signal there. But it is interesting because I posted that, and it was interesting to see all of you going there and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm hearing it." And it was like, some exotic DX. There's some excitement. I could almost feel there was some excitement for some of you. That was like, "Oh, this is so cool. That's the station from Colombia." And we're in the bottom part of the solar cycle, and we are listening to some DX. We're listening to some unusual exotic station that doesn't make it always very strong here up here in North America. and it's a great example of, no, there are stuff to listen to. Solarflex isn't very strong, but you know what? I've been noticing Radio New Zealand 15720 coming in well enough that I have confidence that as we'll get into the month of May and particularly June and July, that I'll have some Radio New Zealand summer listening on 15720 for sure. Keegan KCUR is my first triple catch on 89.3. Wow. It's I wish I could do some FMDX, but here in Montreal it's impossible. The FM band is covered from bottom to top with all the stations. There's like no space in between to listen to anything. KW1161, best DX I ever heard was QSO between a California operator on Picton Island on my Japan radio NRD 535 during the last solar downturn. Tristan, KBS is a great station. Interesting news programs. I really pick it up here in Western Newfoundland. It's better than when I get KBS. Yeah, it's mostly a summer thing. 15575 should be, if we can have a little bit of sunspots just to bring it, just high enough. 15575 in June, July, maybe May, June, July, August sometimes could be surprising. John McClure, nice to have you on board, my friend. Max 7 Radio Intercepts, nice to have you here. Where are you located, my friend? Frank Ireland, nice to have you on board from Venice, Florida. And Anonco has the PL330 back in stock for those that want one. So pretty cool. Nice little radio for the price. It's just amazing. Dave, nice to have you here from California. Keegan, one night in 2020, heard WSJC in Mississippi over WHB. Wow. KW1161 says, I take it that Glenn Hauser is not going to Brother Stair's funeral. No. He's got a hell of a rant at Brother Stair in his World Radio Show at the 20th minute. Neil says, Texan PL330 back on stock, so cool. Maybe Neil's going to buy one. Pretty cool. Yeah, Max 7, absolutely. That's what, that's what I was saying last week, is Dr. Gene Scott has been dead for years, and he's still on the bands. Absolutely, still on the station. Yeah, I would guess that because it's Melissa Scott that actually continues the stuff. So I guess. RG80 Dakota, is double conversion and dual super hit the same thing? I think it is. I think they just put the terms, but it's in reality it's double conversion, but dual superhead is probably a dual conversion or double conversion receiver. It's probably the same thing. Absolutely. RG Dakota, when will the Texan PL368 export version be ready? It's supposed to be any weeks now, so we're going to keep it up. It's also going to be available for you guys in the US through CountyCom, so stay tuned for that because we'll announce that when CountyCom actually is going to make a few changes to the radio to make it a little more sturdy, including with the telescopic. So it will be exactly the same radio. The internals, the electronics will be the same, but going to be interesting. Shelly, nice to have you here from South Central Pennsylvania. Going to be lurking, but I missed what you're drinking tonight. Oh, the usual vodka cranberry juice, pretty much. Skip says, my kid complained about how much I spend on radios until I saw how much he spends on golf clubs. There you go. There you go. Danny Shortwave, playing video games and listening to the radio in the 80s turned me into a tech geek later in life. Made a good living from that too. I don't think it was a waste of time at all. Nope. I was listening to shortwave and playing games on my Commodore 64 or my Commodore 128, actually. It was kind of cool. KW1161, I look at a radio cost in the long term. For example, my $2,000 Japan radio in RD535 has been with me over 30 years. So, yeah. And, you know, it's... I tend to say don't look at a hobby in terms of money. Think of the hobby in terms of you having fun with something and having a great time. John Brocato, nice to have you here from Pittsburgh. And go to my first ham fest in 20 years this Sunday. Wow. So they're slowly bringing back the stuff. Cool. We'll eventually someday have a more normal life than we had. That's really, really cool. Michael says, is there a way to get SDR Uno to work with RTL SDR dongle easily? Michael from Michigan, there is, I believe, in the latest version, there's a way to have the SDR RTL SDR on SDR Uno. They brought that back. I haven't fiddled with it because what happened is SDR Uno did have that capability. Then it was gone, but I believe it's back. I would need to actually plug in my RTL SDR V3 and play with that. But you still have to bring that special some files over to SDR Uno. But I think they brought it back, if I'm not mistaken. And you need to have the special driver installed and everything. It isn't an easy thing to do. It's not like plugging in an SDR Play device and it just works. It requires you to have some extra files. Hey, Brent, nice to have you here from Rockville, Ontario. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, I was enjoying it until I dropped it on the floor and it stopped working. I have to say I was impressed by the sound. I was impressed. And it's the Chinese clone, by the way. And by the way, the Chinese clone has better sound than the Russian one. And that's very important. The Russian one has very standard sound out of it. The Chinese clone that I got has tons better sound. A lot better sound. They actually worked hard to make something better out of it in the audio department. Noise reduction was amazing. I actually was amazed to the point where I would almost be tempted to get another one. It was pretty crazy. Frank Ireland, does the SDR Play DX perform better than the RSP1A? I have the RSP1A. The RSP-DX, where it is mostly better, is in the high dynamic range mode that you can use when you are tuning lower frequencies like long wave and medium wave. It beats the RSP-1A in that respect, and it probably does beat it a little bit in the department of getting spurious signals that can pop up from, say, the medium wave band. But to the point where you would move on from an RSP1A to an RSP-DX, it's another story. I would say that if you want to go for it, or if you're a medium wave, long wave DXer, definitely it is better. But if you're mainly in shortwave, you're not necessarily going to have that much more performance. Although it's extremely fun to have 3 antenna inputs, I have to say. Hector L. Torres Ramirez, nice to have you here. New to shortwave, waiting for my new radio, the SI 4732 in Hollywood, Florida. Cool. What else do we have? Frank Ireland says, I am an extra class ham, but now I live in a condo. No place to put him an antenna. His call is N4OAA. Yeah, a lot of people, as they get older, and people, for example, that also, because you could be moving in a condo, for example, which for a lot of people, it makes it extremely difficult to actually get back or get into the hobby suddenly. It's the same thing with folks that get older that actually get into, old folks' home. Setting up in a place like that for ham radio sometimes is impossible, and kind of the hobby dies because of that, because they just can't set up anything that's proper. David Knowles, nice to have you here. Alec Croucher's SX110 at 8 years old was awesome to me in 1974. Still got it. Needs new caps now, though. Cool. The fun of learning shortwave back then. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Angry Mimi. Finally was able to catch your live stream. I'm a newbie to shortwave. Cool. Welcome aboard. What else do we have? Nah, nothing major grazed us recently. There were some CMEs and some solar winds and a few things, but nothing major. Really nothing really big. The last time we had something real big was the X, when we had an X flare in the last solar cycle. Donald Hosmer, nice to have you here. Neil says, was impressed with the Texan R97DX, 9700DX. I only tried it with the antenna on shortwave despite all my electronics in apartment. So I got some shortwave channels. Cool. No, it's a decent one. For an analog radio, it's a surprising receiver. It's definitely a surprising receiver. Chuck, nice to have you here from Pennsylvania. The export, nice to have you on board from Cincinnati. Is SI 4732 shows up this week after 2 weeks shipping from China. Excited for testing it. Cool. Have fun. That's the most important thing. Bonne nuit, TVDX, sir. Fais attention à toi, samedi. KW1161, Brazilian station on 4885 was also making up very well that night. That's something that you've also got to observe when a station from a particular area of the world comes in on the band. That means that anything that comes from that general vicinity could be interesting. And so if Colombia was stronger on 4940, obviously Brazil and all the stations from South America, Central America that are on the bands. It is interesting because there's a few stations. I was looking at the trace on my SDR here, and there's some really weak traces that I look on frequencies, and you're like, that's some. There was one from I looked at EIBI space, and it was 4762 or 72, or I don't know, not 4760. 40. What was the frequency? Anyways, I looked at the EIBI space, and it said that there was a station from Peru, a very weak, very low powered station from Peru. And I saw a little trace, and I was like, that could be that station from Peru, actually. EC Fetters Walp says, I couldn't hear Radio Tallinn's English broadcast 0 UT and 15590, but they just changed the beam for 01 broadcast. It's coming in fair at the moment here near Seattle. Cool. James Farley, one of my goals is the buzzer. No luck yet. Don't, I haven't heard it in a long time. Honestly, I haven't heard the buzzer in quite a while on the bands. I can maybe try it here. I don't think it's going to come, but let's try it just for the fun of it. Any buzzer? No buzzer at this time. Last time I heard the buzzer, I'm not even sure I heard the buzzer this year. I almost wonder if I haven't heard the buzzer last time, like maybe last fall or very early this winter. Dr. Sissa, new FM expansion from 64108 with proposal was accepted by the FCC and should be more on that in next year. Chastang, vodka and cranberry juice, the official drink of the channel. Slow gin is cranberry juice with gin. Depends what juice. Gin is a harder one to mix with juice. Nils says, yes, Joe, Texan PL 330 on order. Do not dare to take the chance to wait. Do not wait any longer. It will soon run out again. Yeah, they've been selling pretty much, but at the price, it's understandable. It's a very good performer for a very interesting price. Log 2112, nice to have you here. No, there's no PL330 is very bare bones when it comes. It comes with a little pouch to put it in and earbuds, and of course a battery, but it does not come with a wire antenna of any kind. Henderson, nice to have you on board from Brazil. Met your channel today. Are you broadcasting this program via shortwave now? Nope. It sometimes happens when the pirate station decides that they want to do it, but it's not broadcast on shortwave. But we talk about shortwave. KW 61 47 75. Yeah, maybe it's 47 75. And I could see a little, let's just out of curiosity tonight. 4940 Columbia. Anything there? Let's put it. Let's check it out here. Let's see if we hear anything. Not really hearing anything. And if we look at the of the band, apart from 4765, which is Radio Progreso from Cuba. So this is Radio Progreso from Cuba, 4765. With some music right now. Got a big signal from WWCR 4840. And even Brazil doesn't seem to make much of a impression right now. So 60 meter band is definitely not as good as it was Saturday night. But we're still early. It could maybe become better as the evening goes. Charlie W8 CFO, good evening. Nice to have you here from Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, the buzzer here is it's not a once, but I would say a 3 or 4 times a year event. Usually, as we'll get into summer, it's not going to be there anymore. Next fall is going to be when I'm going to get it again. Jerry Johnston, nice to have you here from Lexington, Kentucky. Willie Trouble, nice to have you here. Got the Texan PL 880 out and found the dials were not changing frequency. I had to disassemble and use electronics cleaner spray, which fixed the issue. Common issue with this radio. Nope, the PL 880 are usually pretty good. I don't think that was necessarily a problem there. You sure it was not just locked? Because if it's locked, you won't be able to change any frequency. Because there's the PL 880 is pretty trouble free, and most Texan receivers pretty trouble free in general. Nick Bernstein, I'm curious if shortwave listeners are member of amateur radio lobbying groups like the ARRL, or if not, if you've considered it. Shortwave listeners themselves, probably not, except that there is the a lot of us have the certificate of the amateur listener side to the ARRL, which is the SWARL. But most probably, it's more of an amateur radio thing, I would think. Imper Wiki. Nice to have you here from the UK. What else do we have? Charlie is a member of the ARRL for 65 years. I'm not Chuck. That's WWCR, Serenity X, and Wavescan are scheduled on 48 for 40 Sunday beginning at 10 p.m. Central. Yep, 11 p.m. Eastern. That's the listening that I do. But the signal, there was no WWCR on 4840 last Saturday night. Frank Ireland, what is the buzzer? So here's what it sounds like. I'm going to have a sound clip here so you guys can hear it. So here's what it probably. I'm just going to wait for a second. So the buzzer. Is he going to talk or something? Is he going to check it out here? It sounds like that. It's a signal that is broadcast on 4625 kilohertz upper sideband. It is and we have to say it here because I there's a lot of talk about it, and there's a lot of people talking about it in many ways, and there's tons of videos of conspiracy theories and so on. We have no idea really exactly what it is. Nobody can really say that what they know is exactly the truth about what the buzzer is. The main thing about it is that it is a military Russian signal, and that it's probably there to keep the frequency active and alive and easy to find for any Russian military. It happened in the past sometimes that there was some talk, and I think I can maybe play another clip here, which I think there's an example. Um, so there was something. Let me just check it out here. There we go. Here is something. Let me just check it out here. So here's one that apparently so the guy is using a Yaesu receiver on 4625. There's a few videos like this, and sometimes I wonder if it's not simply something else over the buzzer. But I've seen a few videos of some voice transmissions there. But what we think it is, it's a Russian military signal, and it's probably kept there so that when there's special communications to go through, um, they'll have some voice transmissions. One of the big things of the 80s was that because the buzzer's been there for a long time. The buzzer exists on 4625 for a pretty long time. And a lot of people were thinking, well, the buzzer is, if it stops broadcasting, it's because the nuclear missiles are now actually flying overhead. But I think it's more a down to earth system where put a tone like this on the frequency, and it makes it easy for everybody to get on the frequency and hear and tune in if you have some messages or something. It's like a channel marker, keeping and the Russians have a lot of those, by the way. The Russians have hundreds of shortwave channel markers all across the shortwave bands. Actually, there's tons of channel markers with Morse code in it. So, maybe we can try a few here. Let me just check. Check the EIBI space. There's a lot of them there. EIBI space. And we're going to check by frequency and channel. Here we go. The Russian channel markers. Let's try that out. If you guys want to try it. They're very difficult to hear in North America because of their low power. You guys in Europe might actually have a much better chance. So let's check for a channel marker for Europe here. Channel marker D. So we can try that one here. I don't think we're going to hear it really. But in Europe, you guys, you can try 3593.7. 3593.7 in CW mode. That is a channel marker that's sending out the letter D in Morse code. So check it out. Let's try it on the U20. We're going to go on the U20 receiver here. Let's pause the SDR. Let's bring up the browser. Key U20. U20 SDR. Let's try it there and see what brings that signals there in the U20 receiver. So 3. Oops. So it's 3593.7. 3593.7. Let's try to see if 93.7. Not hearing it there through. So this might not be working. Let's try another one. We're going to go to looking at the ones that are for Europe. So channel marker for Eastern Europe. There's 4557.7. 4557.7. Let's check it out here. And this one. Nope. We're hearing several of them because 4557.7, 8, and 9. If you hear, there's the dot dot dot, which is S. The da da dit is P. So that's another Russian channel marker on 4557.8. So we're hearing 4557.8 and 0.9 on the U20. Let's try it here. Out of curiosity. 4557. Not really hearing them here in Montreal because these, remember, these are very weak, but you see U20 and the Netherlands, SDR is receiving the P and S ones that come from Russia. So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of those channel markers. And these are all military based. They're there to keep active some of the frequencies so that if they have some transmissions. So for example, some of the channel markers that send one letter can actually come to life with a Morse code message that will be sent randomly. Before I forget, I'm just going to read the email that our friend in the UK sent. Tony in the UK says, "Good evening, Gel, and everyone in the chat room. Hope you all have a good show tonight. It's on a bit late for me at 01 UT Thursday, so I'll be watching the replay tomorrow. In a recent show, someone in the chat room asked about using the Texan PL330 with a U-loop. I've been doing that most days over the last week at different times and have been receiving a wide range of broadcasts. So it looks like the PL330 sensitivity is well suited to the U-loop. For example, I've just run an ETM scan at 19 UT, found over 40 stations from the 49 meter band through the 25 meter band, with 31 and 25 meter band being full of strong stations, including Berdiskar booming in on 9400. That's from the Bulgaria transmitter side. My U-loop is suspended from my living room ceiling just in front of the window. We can't put outdoor antennas here. The window faces southeast, and the loop is oriented for maximum pickup from east, west, America, and Europe. I'm luckily in a semi-rural area on the edge of this estate of seniors housing and looking out over fields, so local QRM isn't a major issue if I turn off all the computers, screens, and wall warts. I've also recently started using the PL330 with the internal antenna switched off and connected my AN200 loop, and have been receiving stations well with the loops tuning and directivity through a few distant stations so far, though that may just be current propagation conditions. Hope this is of some use for those interested. So thanks for sharing, Tony. And it shows you that if you want to use a U-loop with a Texan PL330, apparently it works pretty well. Yeah, you guys in Europe, the buzzer is as a regular one. I mean, over there, it's like it's heard everywhere in almost every country. What else do we have? Kimberly says, my taste buds think that drinking gin or vodka is like drinking perfume. That is just my sense of taste. Absolutely no offense. Yeah, it's not everybody that likes alcohol. Also, depends on, I'm not capable of whiskey. I mean, whiskey for me is a no-no. I find my taste buds find it horrible. If you want to kill me, just give me whiskey. No, it's not a marine station beacon. It's really it's not a spy station, and it's not a marine beacon. It's more of a military signal of some sort. Dire Havoc, what's the software in the background? It's SDR Uno. I just changed the way that it actually looks. Instead of having separate windows for the waterfall and the signal strengths, I've actually merged them in by using the combo option, which I find kind of interesting. Marvin Mutz, nice to have you on board from the Japan Islands. Been playing around with the new MLA30. Seems to easily overload my SDR dongle. Yeah, it's possible. It will bring in a lot of signals to your SDR dongle, so you'll have to lower the RF gain. Dr. Sisov, is the Texan AN48X active loop antenna any good? If you're going to spend money on that, you better spend money on the MLA30, because it's uneven. I've used it. I have one here. I have a review on the channel. I've used it quite often, for a while, and it's uneven. There are parts of the spectrum where it actually gives you more noise than anything else. It's difficult to tune because you have to tune that tuning button to match the signals on your radio. And what happens is that it makes it tough to really tune at times. And the other thing is, like I said, it's not good everywhere, and it's not worth it, its price, and it's not far from the price of an MLA30, which does not require any tuning. Niels, Gilles, the new Sangean ATS 909 X2 looks nice, and new firmware, but it is very expensive, but interesting. Yeah, the ATS 909 X2 now is out, or is about to get out with the new firmware version. The original firmware, for those that purchased it first, is 070. Now it's 073. Fixes a lot of the glitches that the radio had, apparently. If you have purchased an X2, you can contact Sangean in America or Sangean in Europe, and you'll have a way of actually updating the firmware to 073. And for those that are asking all the time, I do not plan on buying that radio. I don't think it's worth the price that it's sold. It's a beautiful radio and everything, and if you bought it and you're happy, that's the important thing. But it is very expensive, and I don't think that performs better in any way than a Texan PL990X, by the way, that people find expensive, but is yet at least $150 less than the 909X2. Plus the 909, the 990X from Texan, I'm sure has way better audio than the 909X2. That's another thing. And 909X2 does not have sync, even though the 990X is kind of not working that great. I don't know. It's for me. It's. I'd rather spend that money on a Belka DX SDR. Nick Bernstein says, "Too bad not many listeners are members." Yeah, I understand your point of view there, but at the same time, not that many listeners probably also know about it. Chris66, which SDR would you purchase if price did not matter? I don't know what to answer to that question because I haven't looked too much at the higher end ones that some people are using. So it's I don't know. I would have to look into it more seriously to see what, because there's a few that I know some people are using that seem to be like high-end SDRs. I can't really answer it right now as a question. Willie Trouble, can the buzzer location be pinpointed with RDF? Yeah, and there's actually a few places where there's some Google Maps satellite images that show the transmitter site. It's not very far from St. Petersburg, Russia. K6YYL says, never mind, it was the over horizon radar. Oh, man. Oh, like log 2112 says, it's when there's some weird stuff, it's some weird stuff. It's always kind of interesting. Dire Havoc, how effective would shortwave listening be on a ICOM IC7300? I would guess it would be an excellent receiver for it, honestly. Yes, SDR. No. William Helms, nothing like the University 20. I like it when I'm not listening to it on my DX375. It's just an amazing SDR. So sensitive and so good. It was not da dit. I'm not Chuck. It was dit da dit. It was the P. It was a letter P. And the other one was a letter S. It was really dit da dit, which is a P. What else do we have? What else do we have? Yeah, the buzzer. Agent Smith, nice to have you here. Since passing Brother Stare, listened to Brother Stare for the first time yesterday. He said people are spending a lot of money on soft drinks, money that should be going to him. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What's nice of the U20 SDR also is the fact that we can be hundreds of listeners at the same time. It doesn't have the same limits as Kiwi SDRs that often are just like 4 people at a time or 8 people at a time. Log 2112 says got PWZ 33 Rio de Janeiro Naval weather 8580. Cool. Frank Ireland, yeah, the buzzer is you can hear it in AM mode, but technically is your upper sideband. Sergeant Rock says, great show. 25% of all your population vaccinated for COVID. Yeah, here the province of Quebec is also at 25% right now. So it's moving ahead. It's moving ahead. Nice to have you on board from Hawaii. Francisco Late, nice to have you here. Thank you. Thanks to you, I brought in PL 368. 48 meters are great. 11 meters, not so much. So I haven't tested in the higher frequencies much because there wasn't a lot to listen to. Randall Klontz, is there anything electronic in the box that you connect the loop to ML830 antenna? Yes, an amplifier. The box of the ML830 is a low noise amplifier. It amplifies the signal coming from the loop. That's why you need to power it from the bias T box in order for it to work, Randall. And so there's a little box that is the bias T and power inserter, but at the loop itself, where the loops go to the two screws, that's the low noise amplifier. Bruce, nice to have you here. Paul, nice to have you on board from Southwest Michigan. Chris 66, AirSpy versus SDR Play and price does not matter. Look, if it's for shortwave only and you don't do much more than shortwave, medium wave, and long wave, your choice. AirSpy is smaller, could be more portable than the SDR Play or SPDX, for example. Both are great at receiving signals. If you like wideband and want to go dabble up to the UHF range, then you've got SDR Play RSPDX because it has 3 antenna inputs and it has up to 2 gigahertz. The AirSpy HF Plus ends at 260 megahertz. It has a very small VHF range compared to the RSPDX. And of course, the 3 antenna inputs of the RSPDX makes it really, really nice. So that's the plus and minus that I would say. But both are pretty good. Joe, are you going to get another mount site or just try to repair the one you have? I take a peek at it this weekend and see if I can check out what actually happened when it dropped. If it's something that I can maybe fix or find a way to fix. What I understand right now, and that's what's happening, is when I plug my power brick to it, I hear it click, which tells me that it seems to be when the SDR powers on, it seems to be kind of creating a short circuit rather than actually working. So the power brick that I have actually clicks because it kind of disconnects the USB power because it draws too much current. So I don't know. It's as if there was a short somewhere. So I'm going to try to see what I can do. I have to say that I've been pleasantly surprised. If I would buy one, I've seen that Amazon Canada has a couple. And they're a little more expensive, but I would get the Amazon easy shipping and return if something's bad, which could be interesting. So I don't know. I'm going to check it out, but it could be also the time to move to maybe a Belka DX or something, for sure. Hey, Bruce, Bubba Schwartz, cool. Took my mask off. No problem, my friend. Thomas Skitz, nice to have you here from North Michigan. My husband will be getting schooling to get his ham license this summer. We have a radio shelter in our yard. Nice to have you on board, Tom and Susie. Some music on 9420, which is probably Voice of Greece. Rufus Newt, I admit I am weak must repent and send my hard-earned cash to the radio gods. Will it be a Texan or an ICOM? Oh, man. So, apart from that, so yeah, like the Russians have a lot of signals online. We might not have Voice of Russia, but there are literally hundreds of signals coming out of Russia. Channel markers, maritime stations, weather stations for aeronautical. There's also, of course, aeronautical airport frequencies. And of course, there's the buzzer, and there's so much stuff out there. There's the number stations, a lot of number stations out of Russia. When you start looking at that, you're like, wow, there's really a lot of signals coming out of Russia. It is very, very interesting, and almost sounds like the good old days of the Cold War, when stations, there were tons of stuff that would happen on the shortwave bands. Pretty crazy. Take care, VT Radio. Always nice to have you on board, Paul, AA1SU. Have a good night. Bruce says, always a pleasure to be here. I've learned lots of new things. Thanks, Tijol. Cool. And always nice to have everybody here. It's really cool to have all of you on board. Let's see if we can check out a few more of these channel markers. Maybe I can fetch one over here. What other frequency we can tune to? So I'm looking at the AIBI space. Europe. 5153.7. So I'm going to try that one. 5153.7. If anybody wants to try it. 5153. I'm going to stay in upper sideband like this. Nothing there. Okay, let's silence the SDR. 5153.7. Let's go to U20 SDR. I'm going to tune here. 5153.7 in CW. Oops. 3.7. That one is D. That's D. And there's another one, I believe. I can hear almost another one in the background. Let's try the 0.8. Five one five 3.7, 0.8, 0.9. So 154. Let's check it out. There's one here. I'm not sure. Sounds maybe like a P also, but I'm not sure. So you guys in Europe, you hear them. That's for sure. They're not making it across, but you guys in Europe are hearing them definitely. These channel markers, pretty interesting. If you guys want to see the channel markers, just go to eibispace.de in the frequency list instead of by time. Simply search in that list channel marker, channel space marker, and you will see all the channel markers from Russia pop up in there. Some are directed to Europe, some are directed to the mainland Russia, some are for the Far East, some are for Asia, Central Asia. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting to check it out and tune around. It's pretty surprising, all of these channel markers. And I've heard quite a few here in North America over time. So if you want to try them and hear them with your own radio here in the East Coast, at least check out these channel marker frequencies regularly. I've heard quite a few over time, so you should be hearing some for sure. But remember, they're really low powered, really low powered. The expert, where are you normally setting the RF gain on your Malahite SDR? The RF gain is into the menu. When you go into the menu, you have a series of icons. One is RF gain that you can actually you on the touchscreen you choose, and with the volume control you can turn it all the way down to 0. But you have to go into menu, and on the right side there's an icon where you can get all the internal control options, and one of them is RF gain. Thomas, where is your sweet kitty? He's probably sleeping. He's been going out pretty much all day today, so he's probably relaxing right now. So J Projects says preom.org has some good articles on the signals and markers. Yeah, there are probably a lot of them in there too. I haven't checked the channel markers. So Bruce says, are there any good programs for SDR that work on MacBook Pro? I don't like Cubic. What you could do, and I think a lot of people that have a Mac that really want to have access to a bigger list of programs, maybe you could install a virtual box or Parallels to be able to run a version of Windows within virtualization, and then use your SDR through that. It will enable you to have all the choice of software that Windows has. So it's maybe that would be one of the options. And I know that a lot of Mac users using SDRs actually have Windows in a virtual box to run some of the SDR programs. It seems to work well. Rufus, have you done an article on the Russians on the CIDX newsletter? That would be interesting. I believe I have in the first few utility columns, but you know what? That could be a nice article for the month of May. I was because every month I'm scratching my head as to what would be interesting. Maybe focusing on Russian signals. That would be an interesting one. And I could put the Russian signals there, and also put the some SDRs to choose from if you can't hear them at home. That could be of interest. So I'll check that out for the month of May, maybe. Take care, Tristan. Danny Shortwave Radio DX says, I enjoy using web-based SDRs to listen to signals that I can't receive here. I enjoy listening to the medium wave and long wave bands, especially beacons and time signals from Europe and Asia. I like tuning the medium wave bands in Europe. It's so amazing, compared to here, which is here it's like very monotonous. It's very kind of drab, it's either US stations with those mouth breeders and Canadian stations, but it's like not exciting. There's like tons of countries that you hear everywhere, and it's pretty amazing. Does anyone know of an easy way to put a new SMA connector on to the Malahite, Randall? Connector came off the antenna cable. Because the honestly, I don't know on the you know, one of the things that's very important, by the way, on a lot of portable radios, and be aware of that. Even those Texan receivers, because that's one thing you're actually reminding me of. When you use a connector to or a cable that goes into a antenna connector of any portable radio, make sure that you use a very flexible cable and that it doesn't pull on it much, because having a connector that is too stiff can easily break portable devices antenna connectors, for sure. And the other thing is on the Malachite receiver, you know what? It doesn't seem too difficult to change the antenna connector. The soldering is pretty spaced out. What else do we have? Like 2112. What was the marine weather on 8580 is now general conversation. Portuguese, I assume. Signal improving to my location. I can try it here. I don't think I'm going to hear it, but let's try it out here. 8580 upper sideband. There's nothing here really. Because if I go on the list, there's a lot in that range. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. EIBI space. Space at 8580. Rio de Janeiro Naval Weather Station. 0220-245. It's kind of interesting because they're not technically supposed to be broadcasting right now. 0230, 0245, but I never look at that much because a lot of the weather stations broadcast schedules that aren't always there. You might be hearing some. That's really that's like the marine band there. So maybe you're hearing some fishermen or something. I don't know. Kind of interesting. On 8580. Oh, he's talking about the MLA30 antenna. Okay. What do we have here? Let me just go. Yeah, it's pretty surprising what you can hear in the in a marine band. Yeah, you could technically, if you have problems, you can change the BNC connector. But honestly, if okay, the MLA30 antenna cable. So the cable, when you say the connector, is the connector to the bias T box that came out, and stayed with the antenna connector, or is the antenna connector that stayed on the bias T box? That shouldn't be too difficult to just put a new connector on it. Yeah, a lot of because most of the schedules, often also most of the schedules for utility stations are taken off the air just by listening. No, the export it's completely got off of my mind. Completely, I didn't even think about it. So yeah, a lot of the utility signals are not necessarily coming in very well, and in their schedules. I mean, not always like it's written down. Even the Canadian marine weather stations on the 2 megahertz range, man, a lot of them come out at times where the schedules don't even show they are supposed to be on. It's kind of weird. So you're like, yeah, okay, what, you do your own schedules? From Susie, the bunny is sweet. Is that your kitty's toys? I have been making homemade toys for a kitty. She's already one. She left my hubby's room. No, the little rabbit here. Some of you and the chat room know the story behind it, and it has to do with. So my sister died of cancer in 2011, and the year before we had a party for Easter, and there was this. She gave me this little box, and that had chocolate Easter eggs, and the rabbit was with it on. It was part of a kit, and she purchased it because she thought the rabbit looked cute. So it's been staying with me as a souvenir of my sister that passed away. Actually, this on April 9th that just passed was exactly 10 years since my sister died of cancer. So that's a little rabbit that is a reminder of my sister from the good old days. Take care, KW1161. Nice to have you here as usual, and see you maybe Saturday. Who knows? Hey, no problem, Bruce. It's one of those things in life that's kind of hard. I actually had more harder time. It was tougher for me on that side than my sister died than my mom for some reason. Although my mom, I was taking care of her and I kind of saw it coming. So it's a little souvenir of my sister that hangs with me and stays with me here near my radios. So it's but it's been 10 years now. Time just goes so fast. I was like, wow, 10 years. 10 years. Pretty crazy. Randall, the cable that goes from the USB power amplifier antenna connector, the long cable that comes off the loop. Okay. It shouldn't be too difficult to change that SMA connector. It doesn't need to be that clean of a job, honestly. As long as you just make sure that you keep the connector correctly. Honestly, I would, if you don't have, if you have skills of, soldering skills, buy a cable that has an SMA connector and just, chop off the other one and just solder that one there and make sure it's a nice little job. And it's going to do fine. The cable that comes from the antennas amplifier to the bias T box is not critical because it's amplified. It's an amplified signal. Even if it's a quick job that you just do yourself, it's not going to change anything to the quality of the signals you receive. It's not like if it was, and even if it was a passive antenna, it would still work also. But yeah, well, there's something about that little rabbit that is, for some reason, it's my sister's there. Actually, me and my sister were big gaming fans of adventure games, and we would play all the adventure games, and we would play the same game so that we would be able to help each other if we're stuck somewhere. And man, it took me a good 7 to 8 years before I was able to play an adventure game and not just like, cry my heart out that my sister's gone. There was something that was so intense and with that I just couldn't go back to playing an adventure game. I had tried a few times, but it was like, no, I don't feel right. I can't do it. And now I'm back. I'm playing adventure games actually with the I had a little post on my Facebook wall that said, "Hey sis, already 10 years ago," and I put a little mention. I said, well, in this adventure game, if you can tell me where's the key to the second floor office in some way, if you can find a way to tell me, it would help me out. But finally, I'm back in the adventure games, and it's fine. But it took a long time before I could really go back into playing adventure games without feeling bad, or sad. Hey Thomas, yeah, I'm not much into that kind of I have an open mind, because I got a scientific mind, which makes me um, um, I was I keep my mind open to every possibility, but I'm not that kind of much. I don't believe much of in that type of thing, but that's personal, and I think everybody has a different way of and different beliefs also on that. Oh, the export, the level of the RF gain. It depends on what I was what I was using as an antenna. I would put the RF gain very, very low on the MLA30 because it was overloading like crazy. And I would put it quite high when I was using the telescopic. Kimberly, so sorry. Cancer is terrible. We have many family members who have died of cancer as well. My friends. It was she had breast cancer, and it was extremely quick. We found out when she found out they tried a couple of chemotherapy and stuff, and nothing would happen. And it was type of cancer that was growing so fast that from the time she learned to the time and tried a few things, they did other tests, and cancer was like everywhere in her lungs, everywhere. And doctor said, look, there's nothing we can do. And doctor gave her 6 months, but she learned in October. She learned in late October because I remember it was like Halloween-ish time. And she died, and then she got the test and stuff. She stopped her last treatment in January of 2011 because there was nothing happening. And from there, the doctor said maybe you have 6 months, and she died in April. It was really, really quick. It was like one of those things, like it's like, wow, okay, you learn that you have this, and you're gone 6 months later. It was really, really fast. William Helms. Yeah, I remember. It's something that takes time to really. It's something that takes time to really get to get through, and you never fully get through it. It's something that always stays in your mind. Thomas Kitts, she smiles from heaven on your talks. That is blessing, keeping her memory alive. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Maddie Green, hi. Nice to have you on board. Oh, really? Like 2112? Wow, so sad. As we have Neil says, are you happy with the Texan PL368? Seems interesting. Would be nice to have this radio this summer. Easy to take when you are on the move. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a great little radio, and really, really like it. Really, really like it. Yeah, I remember, Bobby. I remember. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see the as time went by and everybody following. We get to a point where we start learning about each other and everything. You know more about your fans and the people that follow. Hey, Lou Braga, nice to have you here from New York City. Chess, sometimes talking about these things helps not only the one affected, but those of us going through our own situations. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Chris 66. My father-in-law had a really fast, bad lung cancer. He died in 4 months after finding out. Really tough. Yeah. I think what's tough is when it's fast. It's almost as if it's getting you by surprise and you just you didn't have time to go through all the steps that you need to go through to say goodbye. It's just too quick. My mom, it took years. She had an illness and I was taking care of her. And because it took years and I was always the one helping out, I could see it coming. It gave me the time to see it coming. So when she died, it was not a surprise. It was, yeah, we're there. Okay. After all of that time, we're there. And so when she died, I was sad, but my sister it was worse. It was like, and we were planning a trip to Egypt together, stuff in which is like, of course, went down the drain. And so, all of that together, it's like, wow, that was tougher. Kimberly, I do believe in messages from afterlife. I swear that my brother came back to comfort me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't comment on that because I'm not. Who knows? Who knows? One very weird story. When my mom died, she died. It was 3 a.m. And we were all the family was together, and we were at the hospital, and we said our last goodbyes, came back home, and the next 24 hours later, I'm sleeping, and the phone rang at 3 a.m. exactly. And there was, like, when I answered, there was nobody on the phone, and I went back to bed, and I was like, well, this is kind of creepy. Exactly at 3 a.m., 24 hours later, and it felt weird. That was so weird. And I was like, wow, this is so bizarre. Canadian Radio TV guy says, arriving late, getting my first ever QSL card in the mail soon from CFRX 6070, Toronto. That's some unusual e-skip. Heard them on Monday night. Cool. RJ88 Dakota. Because of your videos, I have made a decision to buy the PL368, but need to know when it will come out officially. It's any day or week now. And when it does, there's going to be the County Com version also in the United States, which is the same radio, but with a few improvements in the quality of the receiver itself. Mark Elford, nice to have you on board from Vancouver Island, BC. Install radio soldering for hours. I've never been good at it. Yeah, I'm not the best soldering guy either. Not the best soldering guy either. I can tell you that. Oh, so sad, Charlie. So sad. It's one of the bad the bad things of life, knowing that people will pass on, and so it's crazy. Okay, guys, we've been on for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I will say goodbye for tonight. I'm a little tired, and it's a little late here. It's 10:20 p.m. We'll be back on Saturday with our regular shortwave show. Hope you enjoyed the live show tonight. It was a lot of fun to be here. Hello there, our friend Mohammed from Qatar. Pretty cool. Hey, Steve in Australia. Nice to have you on board. Did you try the noise reduction slider in SDR Uno? I'm gonna check it out, Steve. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm curious. I'll let you know. I'll do a video on it. Joe Tyson, everybody, take care. Jason Francis, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Always nice to have all of you. So we'll be back on Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time, and hope that you'll be here. We're gonna tune around and have fun. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, and see you Saturday. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Bye-bye.